With gas prices so high, he crossed out ass and grass from his No One Rides for Free bumper sticker. Adam Carolla.
Yeah, get it on. Got to get it on. The church has got a mandate. You get it on. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for telling a friend. I think I'm going to play some made-up movie today as well. And that Leor Sapir, I believe I'm getting his name right, wrote a very interesting article on trans and the Black Lives Matter movement. It's a very interesting correlation. So
hard to debate a lot of it.
We'll get into it.
Yeah.
Oh, did you check that out?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And
makes sense.
It makes total sense. And we'll get into the nuts and bolts of that with him when he's in the second part of the show. So first, from the personal pages, I was tucking Sonny in last night with Phil, who took a dip in the pool and then went to go thaw it on Sonny's mattress. And I don't know why. I was talking to him earlier about, getting out to Red Rocks, and he didn't go this time because he flew home a little early from Colorado. Long story, but...
He didn't want to miss a test.
I said the museum, they got a museum at the bottom. It's great, you know. They got the Blues Travelers up there on the Wall of Fame, blah, blah, blah. And then he said, it's about 12:30 at night. He's like, how do you know John Popper? And I said, he used to come into Loveline. He just has a good sense of humor. I always loved the band. He's just always been a guy who's been willing to play ball, just fun. A lot of bands like Blur, maybe Oasis, you know.
No, how dare you.
They don't have the same sense of humor.
What?
He's got a good sense of humor. I think a lot of it just comes from security. He's a great singer. He's a great harmonica player. And
What's he got to prove?
He doesn't have anything to prove or worry about, and he just has a good time with it. And and then it popped in my head. I said, I guess I met him all those years back on Loveline.
Sonny's mystified that you know a 90s musician.
Yes, and that I said he used to come in and he would jam. He would like hang out and jam. And then I said, punch in like Loveline, John Popper jamming with Adam and Drew. And I forgot about what we used to do with him. We used to do a little theater of the mind with him, and we'll play the first clip.
As tradition would have it, we're going to do a little jamming with John. John comes in here.
You guys got your axes on. I think we might as well.
John brings his harmonica in when he comes in to do this show. And the last few times I brought my guitar in and I jammed along with him. And just an impromptu kind of thing. We didn't work anything out. This time I've convinced Drew to bring his bass in. And I know you might not have picked this thing up since
Killer spandex, Dr.
78. 78 is the last. Seriously, but you played a little between then and now, right?
Nice blue and yellow spandex you got on, by the way.
Now don't make a mockery of this. He's probably nervous. He hasn't played in a long time. But I got my guitar, and you got your bass, and John, you got your harp.
Yeah.
All right, so you want to start? Give us a minute to back up.
What do you guys want to do? Do you think something funky? What key do you like? You like B?
Yeah, B's. Drew, do you know? Yeah. B good?
Yeah. B's good.
All right. Let me just take a second.
Hold on. Drew contributing.
Shoulder here.
Hold on. It was Favored Nations. We got paid the same on that show. Drew to lean in and go, yeah. Yeah, okay. And
yes,
then, I remember very clearly. I used to go, Drew, we get paid the same on this show, except for I do 86% of the talking. Does that seem fair to you? And he'd always go, I'm a physician. I'm trained. I have a medical degree. And I'd go, okay, who makes more, a physician or Jerry Seinfeld? Oh. And then he'd shut up. Yeah. And then that was the end of that. All right. Sorry. We'll continue on.
Take a second, put the strap over my shoulder here.
I know that Adam can play begrudgingly, I admit that, but I haven't really heard Drew kicking on the bass yet.
All right, you ready to go?
Let's see what we got here. Yeah, nice. Drew's making the funniest face right now. me hear you play.
Our program director is probably listening. What the fuck does this have to do with kids and problems and herpes? But okay.
Wrong line of work. It's been a while, huh? Yeah, all right. Yeah. Well, let's hear Drew do the proper bass solo. Come on, let's hear that. Drew, you kidding me? Yeah.
When I was 19, I ate about 4 boiled peyote butt. Stayed up all night and felt no effect.
Jesus, Drew.
Forgot that track.
I had to bring it up to him. Wait, now he did that behind his back.
No.
That's pretty crazy. Wow, that was pretty fun. You guys are pretty good.
Yeah.
Drew.
What?
I mean, Jesus Christ. Who the
Grief.
You brought up the bass like twice in the 4 years that I've known you.
Adam, look, I was afraid you want me to play with you.
I know, but it's like if you got something and it's going to be good on the show, why don't you say it?
All right.
I think you guys should do it on the TV show, frankly.
Yeah.
There's the New York Minute Chops. I got to be honest,
Man,
John
a few
Popper,
words.
fantastic harmonica player, possibly the least impressive of the three of them.
Yeah. Well, we knew to expect greatness from him.
Oh yeah, Drew. You know the thing that's funny about Drew? I always told him, look, I was a jock in high school. We didn't go near the theater. Those were for the homos with the berets. We wanted
Hell
nothing
yeah.
to do with that. I was 100% jock, and then I walked right out of North Hollywood High and onto a construction site, and that was about it. And then Drew was always like, I was in Man of La Mancha. I was a trained, we
He was
had
singing
a
The
theater.
Impossible Dream.
Oh, we had a theater. Fucking guy can't act at all. And I don't know if it's that he's begrudgingly or
I need to hear a few more of those clips before I render judgment. Did you do that with Cherry Poppin' Daddies?
We would do that with Toshi Yanagi, I think is his name. Toshi is the lead guitar. He's in the band.
Oh.
He's in Kimmel's band.
Oh.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, and so Kimmel's band was all put together by Cleto. Cleto is the childhood friend of Jimmy, who lived
Right.
across the street back in the day. And when Jimmy, because this is how Jimmy rolls, when he was getting the band together for the late night show, he said, hey, Cleto, why don't you put together some guys and you'll be the band leader? And, it's like, hey, he's growing up next door to the guy. He's his best friend. Jimmy's got the late night Letterman jacket on, wants to be a late night talk show host. And, 20 years later, he's a late night talk show host. And
Cuddle
he
up next to that guy.
hits the guy across the street. And be nice to your neighbors.
Is what you're saying?
Yeah. And so one of the
Should I
guys.
treat my elderly Asian neighbor the same way?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because one day
You never know.
you may be drowning in a river, and she may throw you a rope.
Fair enough.
So I don't know who played the bass, but it was like one of these guys that Toshi just grabbed because Toshi knows all these guys, and we would just put them in and set them up. I think there's another one where John is singing in it too, which is kind of funny. And I don't know if Drew was a conscientious objector to this. I kind of felt like he was.
He heard Kevin Weatherly's voice in the back of his head saying, "Don't ever do that again."
I'm not sure, but I think I heard in that first clip when John said he played that behind his back. Did you hear Drew in the background go, no?
I know.
That happened.
John was trying to add something to it, and Drew was not having it. It was basically, if you ever drag someone to a restaurant they just don't want to go to, they just sit there and pout the whole time. The stuffed mushrooms were a little dry.
How was it?
Yeah, maybe. But it's also hard because Drew's a horrible actor, so we don't really know.
I think I got it right here. Let's just see if that was Drew.
Drew never said anything. I had to bring it up to him.
Wait, now he did that behind his back. That's pretty crazy.
No.
First thing you learn at when you go to the groundlings is no.
Deny
No,
the premise.
but.
Yeah, deny the premise.
Yeah.
First lesson.
No. Could have been silent there.
Yeah.
Had to yell no into the microphone. So
That's
that's
awesome.
it was like doing stage and acting with Dr. Drew. Do we have the one where John starts singing a little bit too?
I think we should jam again. You guys too? All right, get your bass on.
All right. Okay. Wow, that's pretty good. All right, let's tune up again. Okay, I'm into it. So what do we want to do now? Let's do B and coming off the 5. Okay. That's off the 5. Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's a little musical talk, right? 1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, my name is Adam Carolla, and I like to talk on the radio. Sing it, John. Well, my name is Adam Carolla, and I like to talk on the radio. And with my partner, Dr. Drew, I like to play for y'all on tonight's radio show. We're talking about problems, both sexual and just being young. We'll take calls from anybody, from Genghis Khan to Attila the Hun. And Drew likes to slap that bass in the classical tradition of Freud and Brothers, and of course our old pal Jung.
Wow.
Jung. That rhymes better that way. Not just a genius, but he's mean.
Everyone listen to me.
He's figured out how to program television that cannot help but be seen. I'm not sure about the general principle, of course, mind you, but it definitely involves a woman on a trampoline. Woo! Come on, Adam, blow a little for us. Wednesday night, 10:30, Comedy Central.
We get it.
It's good
I
stuff.
love John Popper's the greatest, right?
He's the best. And he's been on here before. And remember, John Popper improves a song?
Yeah.
Which is the fucking greatest bit I've ever heard in my life.
Why not be nice?
Why not?
And fun.
And talented.
Doesn't cost anything.
That's
Yeah.
right. And every once in a while, you got to shoot a squirrel in your home.
In your bathrobe.
That's the other one. Sean's like, he shot a gun in his house? Like, well, he had a squirrel in there.
What would you do?
Yeah, what would you do? All right, so Drew's fine acting chops. I forgot Drew's.
No.
And John put the rhymes together.
Oh, John came ready to play it
Yeah.
in version number 2.
Yeah, and I appreciate musicians so much. I appreciate, there was no talk or rehearsal or anything. It was just like everyone just sort of looked at each other and went, all right, here's what we're doing. And they just do it.
It looks like a magic trick to the rest of us.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the YouTube comments, even the more recent ones, I can't believe Adam, Drew, and John jammed so well. Like, everyone still believes it. A lot of people do, or they're really disappointed.
Well, it's because of Drew.
Yeah, he sold it. And then I was playing this from Sonny's phone last night, and he was like, you play? You never said anything.
Oh, wow.
First off, if I could play Mary Had a Little Lamb on a flute, you'd know.
You'd never stop hearing
on
it.
a recorder.
Yeah.
You would know about it, boy.
It's one of the greatest things about radio.
Yes.
Is you can just fake it just like that. It's theater. You sold it. You sold it.
Well, the beauty of radio, and everyone's hooked on YouTube and the whole visual thing, but it's the theater of the mind. Like, I don't know what percentage of people actually thought we were playing or not, but it doesn't really matter because it just sort of melts into what it is. It's like when someone, when Kyle Dunnigan does a killer Trump voice, or like, what is going on in the audience's mind? It is at a certain point, and the closer you can get to realistic, like this, you wouldn't know unless you knew we didn't play instruments, and it just makes for the question mark is kind of fun. It is like, is there a Santa? Isn't there a Santa? You're 9. I don't know. I'm not taking any chances. I'm putting them cookies out. Like, I don't want to get screwed.
Yeah, there was a lot of that on night radio at KLSX with Conway and Whitman. There was a lot of fights that I couldn't figure out if they were real or not. But there was always part of the entertaining thing about being with Conway.
Well, I asked Doug Steckler if the fights were real.
Sometimes they were.
And sometimes they're not. I mean, it's
I think
very hard to tell.
Ricky Rackman punched him in the face? Or who punched him in the face?
Steckler punched Ricky Rackman.
Didn't he fall
Ricky
off the
Rackman
stage
was
or something?
That was a different story. Ricky Rackman was blocking the door, and Steckler punched him, I think?
I thought...
Or did I get that backwards?
Well, maybe I'm just sizing up Steckler, who's
That's
a kind
true.
of older, diminutive guy at the time. But I think the story was Ricky punched him.
Hold
but
on.
either
you're
way.
probably right. But yes, he did also fall off the stage.
Oh, Steckler.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder what the hell Steckler's doing. I used to do their
saw him-
show all the time.
I saw him not that long ago, and he just was as nice and quiet as he could be. Oh, hi, it's great to see you. Hello, hi.
Very funny writer.
Very.
All right, so then on to other subjects. I had this. I was thinking about whenever we travel to another town, we're always inevitably going somewhere like Red Rocks, Boulder. We went to Golden, and we're always just traveling down pristine highway. And I'm always looking at the off ramps and on ramps and how well they're manicured and everything. And I just go, this was in Denver. It's like, it's always so great. And then, but Denver has their flora and their fauna because of their conditions. And then you go to Phoenix and they have their own version of it. And then there's LA, which is always a shit show because we think we're in some sort of tropical paradise, but really just in a fucking flat out desert. And the guys doing the planting, all you got to do is look up and look at the freeway sign that says we're in a drought. And
well, that's that.
Go ahead and plant based on that, and then put the gravel down based on it. Let's stop trying to do the beautiful, the lush gardens that it's never attended to. It never works out.
These succulents will look great.
Yeah.
And then I started thinking, you want to be Jason Statham and not Jerry Buss.
Do tell.
That's the whole thing. Like, here we are. Look, California. You would like a big old head of beautiful feathered back hair. We can't do that because we're Jerry Buss.
The harder you try, the worse it comes out.
Right. So now what happens is, first off, a lot of effort with the blow dryer and the comb over. It's going to take you an hour before you leave the house. And then when you do, it's going to look like shit. You're never... there's garbage and homeless everywhere. We're not going to pull off the manicured freeway thing. This is
not us.
Yeah, once in a while, there'll be that house in the neighborhood that has beautiful dichondra grass in the front and everything's blooming. But also, every time you pass it, the old lady who lives there is out front tending. It's tending. Or they're the guys just going full cacti and rock now, and no one's out front, but it still looks good. We don't have the time, wherewithal, or energy to tend to this. So let's not be Jerry Buss. Let's be Jason Statham. Just get out the fucking buzzer.
Buzz it.
And
own
live it.
Buzz it and
own
kick
it,
ass.
And you'll be fine with it.
You'll work forever.
Yeah.
All right. The other thing was I went to the other shop, and I discovered a pizza. The pizza was out, and so I had to ask some questions. What's the meaning of this pizza?
Oh, boy.
Because the toppings, and we can show a picture of a slice of that pizza. The toppings on the pizza were thinly sliced tomatoes, which I just argue is not a topping when it's sitting
on a bed of tomato sauce.
Okay, if you take, I can't imagine something that has less taste than a thin wheel of tomato. Yeah, hot tomato that you just eat. It will just taste like gush in your mouth.
Yes, and it's functionally impractical because you get a hold of that thing, one little corner or whatever, an edge
slides.
The rind
slides off.
Everything around it.
Then there are pieces of basil scattered about the top.
Yeah,
something
you gotta
like
shift out that basil.
Something green that's about 3/4 wide and 1.5 inches long, just sort of haphazardly tossed on there. So then I went in. I had to, I start walking the grounds. What's the story with the pizza? Oh, Nate had a poker party last night. I said, okay.
I didn't get notified about that.
He must have been the loser.
Usually clears it with me, but all right. He had a poker party. Pizzas were bought.
Chris, were you there?
I was not there, no.
Good.
I said, all right, where's the... Got to get to the bottom of the pizza situation. So I asked Adam, and he said, I don't know, I wasn't there. But Simon, the editor, was. So go into his bay and figure it out. I said, Simon, what's the pizza story? He said, well, we played poker, and we got 3 pizzas. We got the pepperoni, we got the meat lovers, and we got the veggie.
Oh, boy.
And I'm like,
which 2 were devoured immediately?
Where are the meat lover and the pepperonis? I go, those are gone.
Yeah. Those have been extruded.
Can we just at least say this? You cannot, you're vegetarian. Vegetarian means you can't eat meat, but it doesn't mean you have to eat vegetables.
Thank you.
Can we just make a plain cheese the default setting for when you might have the person who's the vegetarian at the poker table?
Cheese pizza's great.
And I would argue that when I'm eating pizza, and I usually start with the sausage and onion or something, but it'll get a little salty, and it's a little rich, and I will cleanse my palate with a plain cheese piece and then go back to the majesty of the meat lovers at some point. So can we just make that a universal rule? It is cheese. There's no nutritional value that's being gained from this. It's annoying to the people who did finish the meat lovers because they don't want any part of this abortion. And I would argue that even the folks that say they like vegetables, this isn't helping your cause whatsoever from any standpoint.
No. You make so many good points about that. That doesn't look even remotely as appetizing
Drew says no.
as a piece of cheese pizza does. But also with the tomatoes, I was just thinking, people are probably like, well, you like tomato sauce, right? This makes it better. So do you want to sprinkle some cold jack cheese over your hot pizza?
I agree.
What is the point? What are we doing?
Redundant.
Look, I won't. I won't attack you if you just want to order an olive or a mushroom pizza if the one vegetarian says, I like olives or something.
Because you're not getting cute if you do that. This is getting cute.
Agreed. I do not know why whole tomato slices are even an option for toppings on pizza, but they seem to be around.
It's funny you say cute. I think we're saying the same thing, but I think the opposite. I think it's incredibly basic. Like, what are we going to do on top of our pizza? Tomato? There's already tomato there. Put more tomato on. It's just There's so many good vegetables. Peppers, onions. You can make that pizza sing.
Great.
Go
Totally.
garlic in a pinch.
Yeah, now you're talking.
All right. So then back to Red Rocks. I had this thought.
We've been away far too long.
Yeah. I got to get that clip, Chris, and give it to Sonny where he's singing Adam's a Genius or something like that, because his little head will explode. So I had this thought. Well, I'll converge two thoughts. One is I was reminiscing the other day about the old place that I did the earthquake rehab at.
On Western?
It's off of Western and right kind of around Koreatown on Mariposa Street. And I was saying, I went into every single unit. The building's about 4 stories tall. It was very deep. Every unit was exactly the same. And it was, they were singles. They had a bathroom, a small galley kitchen, and then one room, which
like
was
a
the
college
living room.
apartment, like on campus apartment.
Living room, bedroom with a Murphy bed that just pulled down. Okay. And every single unit was just a single with a Murphy bed. And when you walked in, there was a little area at the beginning, and in the lobby, there's a small lobby. You go up a couple stairs, you go into an elevator or upstairs, and you go to your unit. And then in the lobby, the person lived in a little unit that was attached to the lobby, sort of like Blues Brothers. You just walk in, you check the person there, any mail, any visitors, and they have a note or something for you. You got a phone call.
My bed.
That's right. You got your cheese whiz. So, and I realized this is low-cost housing, and this was built in the 1920s. We built a lot of these units. This place was built in 1928. It's still around today. Per square foot, in terms of the footprint of the place. The footprint of the place is the size of a decent-sized single home, like a single-family dwelling. It is, it's 60, 80 feet wide, and it's 110 feet deep, and it looks like just a good-sized lot for a home to be on.
How many units?
They were three, four stories times each side. They had the hall that just went right down the middle. They had, 10 units on each side. There's probably 40, 50 units in this thing. And these buildings were all over the place. And it was like housing for people that didn't make much money. Later on, when I got there, that was probably in the 20s. When I got there in the 80s, it was just sort of subsidized housing for people that weren't gainfully employed, but sort of took care of themselves. And so, this shit's been around for a long time. We're talking about, hey, we need housing. We need affordable housing. We need units. We built a lot of these units, number one. But the deal was everyone who lived in those units was not a fucking junkie and would go out in the day, go to work, and then they'd work on a railroad or some very low paying whatever, and then they'd come back and they'd have their small place that had a roof on it and a hot plate, and they would exist. But if everyone who lived there said, I want to do fentanyl all day, it wouldn't work. The notion of we need low cost housing, that's fine for people who are willing to not fall asleep with a lit cigarette in their mouth and burn the fucking place down to the ground, or they want to be at a park slamming drugs all day. If you would like some semblance of work and life, but you're not making a lot of money, or your things are tough for you, or you just got divorced and the wife took the house or something, then you would end up here and you would live. The deal with everyone on the streets here is they're not going to make that deal. We could fix it, but it's completely unfixable if you won't just subscribe to these kind of little small rules. And it's sort of like saying,
it's off the table.
It's like saying, we got a problem with a student who's underperforming. You could be a bad student, you could be underperforming, and then a teacher could volunteer to stay late and work with you, or you
that's a waste of my time.
Tutor you. It's got the word perform in it, Brian. I didn't even think. So that would work. But what if you would refuse to never show up at school?
Right.
Well, there's not a lot of teachers, we need more tutors. Not for people who won't physically show up.
Right.
So good luck. But what I'm saying is don't approach it like these people would like to live in this place on Mariposa I worked on. They would not.
Well, and when you say low-cost housing, not to beat the horse here, but low cost for who? Because last I heard these units were $800,000 a piece.
And back to Red Rocks, we sat and we watched the formation, the building of the amphitheater Red Rocks. And it was naturally formed, and the Indians prayed there and all that stuff.
So,
and
of course, you have to take it over and make it a theater.
Whitey showed up and said, Blues Traveler needs a place to play.
He's got Dave Matthews. He's got a band.
In a beautiful setting.
You're right. We got to sell T-shirts. So in the early 40s, they started it. And then they showed a picture, and actually it was an old tape, like interviewed a lot of the guys who built it. All done by hand. You know, it's way up the mountain. There was no bobcats or backhoes or anything. There was this all done by hand, all done by like delinquent 16 and 17-year-old boys. Oh. They just built camps. These guys are all white, all just fucking Irish guys from broken families or were getting juvenile delinquents, getting in trouble. And they go, you know what? We're going to find a place for you to burn some of those calories.
Well, outward bound.
And they brought them up there, and they just swung pickaxes and wheelbarrows, and they just tired themselves out. And they interviewed these guys, like, we got $5 a week, or they got $25 a week and had to send 20 to their family. Oy. They got to keep 5. And it's like, we're all happy. We're all tired. We all felt like we're a part of something. I don't know. When did this become sort of like a racist crime or an attack on people? Like, if you're fucking delinquent and fucked up in 17, the best thing we could do for you is get you clearing forest out in the hills and get you working. Dropping off money and telling you have a target on your back and the man is coming after you. That's all it's going to do is fuck your shit up. Like, and you realize, whether it's the house from 1928 or Red Rocks from 1942, we knew all of this shit 60 years ago. We just didn't, we're not moving on it now. We have a bunch of politicians going, you don't have to do that, I'll fix it. Well, then fix it, but you can't fix it. And these guys need purpose. But they showed like the group shot of like 100 of them, just
proud.
Bunch of Irish dudes.
Wow.
That was all.
Drunken
Irish dudes.
Hey, you know what I was thinking when you first mentioned the units you used to go into? There was when I was a kid, I thought the Murphy bed was the coolest thing in the world.
Oh, of course, Murphy for a kid.
Awesome. I would like to hear from callers maybe tomorrow. What was something that you thought was awesome as a kid that as an adult you're like, that's for fucking losers?
Dude, as a little kid, all the teenagers I knew and looked up to had zits and braces, and a lot of them had a cast.
Oh, because it was a sign of
nothing's cooler than zits
I
and
thought braces were cool, and a cast was cool too. And I would say this from what I've learned from watching sitcoms, as far as the Murphy bed goes, don't design those with a spring that has enough tension that can throw a 180-pound guy into the wall. I just feel like that's a liability.
That's right
there. All right. Leor is on hold. He's going to chime in a second. We'll talk about this interesting article. First, I'll tell you about Simply Safe. Today's episode is brought to you by Simply Safe Home Security. We believe home should be the safest place on earth for every family, and I use and recommend Simply Safe. It's a great product. It's a great company. They've been with us for a million years. You don't have to drill. You don't have to pull wires, peel and stick. Everything's miniature. Batteries last up to 10 years, 24/7 professional monitoring, and their agents will dispatch police or first responders the moment a threat is detected, even if you're not home or can't be reached. Just $1 a day, no long-term contracts. Named the best home security of 2022 by U.S. News and World Report for the third year in a row. Not too shabby. Customize the perfect system for your home in just a few minutes at simplysafe.com/Adam. Go there today for free indoor security camera plus 20% off with interactive monitoring. It's 2 eyes. simplysafe.com/Adam. All right. We will talk to Leor Sapir. I guess it's Sapir or Sapir.
We'll find out.
We'll figure that out. We'll talk to him right after this break.
It's time to check Adam's voicemail.
Hey, it's Aaron in Michigan. Driving around today, I've seen 2 different cars, one by a nursing company and another business-owned vehicle. Has in bright red letters and a sticker in the back, vehicle does not turn right on red. Get it on.
You can leave us a message at 888-634-1744.
Leor Sapir, he's a fellow at the Manhattan Institute, completed his postdoctoral fellowship at Harvard, so he's smart and good looking. Currently a fellow at the Manhattan Institute, and wrote an article that I found very interesting, The Assault on Children's Psyches, and it's out. You can find it now. It came out June 20th. And you can go to manhattaninstitute.org and check out his author page. Thanks for joining us, Leor.
Thanks for having me, Adam.
So let's just talk about the nuts and bolts of your thesis, and then we'll ask some questions and have a dialogue.
Sure. So the gist of it is that, we know that teenage identification, self-identification as transgender, queer, non-binary, all these new kind of sexual identities has risen dramatically in recent years. We know that a large majority of these kids are likely to just desist on their own if you just leave them alone and you don't entertain their confusions. We also know that a lot of them are receiving unnecessary medical interventions that lock in their confusions and leave them sterile, deformed for life, and a lot of them will regret it deeply later on. So what I try to do in my article is I try to show how this new phenomenon that we're seeing in public schools and private schools, of course, of teaching children about gender identity and the fluidity of gender from a very early age, how that interacts with the other element of wokeness, which is critical race theory. I know that a lot of people don't think that that's a thing, so I don't even have to use that term. Let's just say progressive messaging on race issues. And what I show in the article, Adam, is that for a lot of especially white female teenagers, these girls are told day in, day out that being white puts you in an oppressor class, that there is nothing that you can do as a white person to opt out of that oppressor class, that being an oppressor is, of course, a horrible thing, that you benefit from these systems of white privilege. But at the same time, these girls are also bombarded with messages about how courageous and authentic and amazing it is to be LGBT. And one of the things that I think we are not sufficiently attuned to is the fact that, unlike being gay or lesbian, being trans, queer, often doesn't require anything but just a self-declaration. So that means that these young girls can just declare themselves a non-conventional identity. And, they can't opt out of being white, but they can at least, as I put it in a piece, they can, reduce the wages of whiteness. They can climb one rung up on the ladder of oppression and claim some kind of victim group. Now, this would all be innocent and maybe not newsworthy if all they were doing was declaring themselves queer or trans and moving on once they matured out of it. But of course, the second they declare themselves trans, they're affirmed in their new identity, and many of them are led down a path to medicalization.
Yeah, there's a couple of things. First off, this is a new thing, and it's pretty extreme as far as a definition of extreme for society. For society, it doesn't get much more extreme than that guy wants to be a girl and that girl wants to be a guy. For society, there are other trends and fads and fashion and things like that, but this is about as extreme as it gets. And part of that fucking apparatus is, sorry, I'm pissed, but if somebody dares to raise their hand and go, what's going on here? And no, I'm not going to run down this path with you as fast as I possibly can, because I have a lot of questions about why so new, why now, what's going on. I'd like to poke around a little bit. That person gets ostracized and pulled off of Twitter, and they won't sell their book at the local bookstore. It's the same thing that happened with COVID. It's like, hey, there's this thing and everyone needs to stay home for 2 years. And if somebody raised their hand and went, I don't think so, it's like, all right, now you're in trouble. You're not going to get your medical license renewed. This is the scary part of this. The The part where the confused people are trying to get some intersectional points because they're in high school and it would just behoove them to do it, that I understand completely. Our entire sort of media turning against anyone who asked a question about where COVID may have emanated from. Was it a lab? Was it a wet market? How effective is our mask? Why is every other 16-year-old girl transitioning? They're just asking questions. They don't need to be pulled off of platforms and ostracized or fired from their jobs. That's the real insidious and scary part of this chapter, I think, in our society. But I'll be welcome to your opinion, Leor.
Yes, I think you're right. I think one of the most remarkable features of this new, trans revolution in our culture is, number one, how suddenly it appeared. Prior to, let's say, 2013, 2014, virtually nobody was talking about this issue. It was really, it was a niche interest of a bunch of academics and maybe some radical community organizers in San Francisco and New York. And then all of a sudden, it just kind of exploded on the scene at the state and national level. I would say that the reason it has risen to national prominence so quickly, despite the fundamental, I think, internal philosophical confusions of the trans movement, the lack of any good scientific evidence for the benefits of gender transition for kids. I think that this result, I think, is from a number of confluent factors, including patronage by the Democratic Party. President Obama really put this issue on the national agenda. As you mentioned, it's receiving patronage from the academy as an institution, from the mainstream media for the most part. Book publishers are extremely hesitant to criticize to publish any criticism of it. Medical organizations have, by and large, almost totally succumbed to its ideology. And of course, in the corporate world, we saw this past month that corporations are not only tolerating it, but they are leading the fight. I would say, Adam, if you are an alien arriving at planet Earth and you know nothing about Americans, you know nothing about Western society, and you are just kind of an alien social scientist here to study American society, I think you could be forgiven for believing that there is no group more powerful in America today than transgender people. And the reason is that you have a tiny minority, something in the range of less than 0.5%, whose ideas, or at least the ideas of those who claim to speak on their behalf, of activists, those ideas cannot be openly criticized. That is a mark of supreme power. And the fact that this group also claims to be the most oppressed in society, I think, is remarkable. Now, again, I don't want to suggest that I'm not criticizing transgender people. I'm criticizing transgender activists here. That's a crucial distinction.
The other thing that's sort of interesting is, and I want to talk about boys versus girls, because girls are transitioning and doing what you're talking about at a much higher rate than boys. So we can talk about, well, why isn't this affecting the 16-year-old boy who wants to get some intersectional points on the schoolyard? Now, the other thing is back in the day, it seemed like it was boys. It seemed like it was a lot more boys becoming girls. It was exclusively boys becoming girls. And when I was kind of growing up, that guy's a transvestite or whatever. Right. So that's a dude who became a chick. That's
cross-dressing.
That's pretty much it.
Men.
And if you said, well, what about women who want to become men? It'd be like, I haven't seen that. I've seen this. Well, now the script has been flipped. And so if you study civilizations and trends and things like that, you have to then go, why this? Why the change? So maybe you can speak to that a little, Leor.
Absolutely. So your intuition is entirely correct. It used to be the case that, gender transitions were definitely more common in men than in women. And especially at the pediatric level, the protocols developed in the Netherlands during the 1980s and 1990s that were really that laid the foundations for gender transition in kids. They were based on studies done almost entirely on boys. I mean, there were some girls in those studies, but most of them were boys. All of those boys had a gender dysphoria, or as it was called at the time, gender identity disorder. Symptoms of that condition appeared very early on, prior to puberty. All of them were screened for psychological comorbidities, anxiety, depression, autism, things like that. All of them had the support of their parents for undergoing these procedures. So there were, rail guards. There were strict rail guards put into place by the Dutch experts for who gets these medications. In the United States, gradually those guardrails were done away with, starting in 2007. And between 2009 and 2017, roughly in that period of time, you start to see this explosion in the number of young people, mostly teenagers, showing up at gender clinics demanding hormones. The vast majority of those kids nowadays, and this is true not just in the United States, but across Western countries, the vast majority of those kids nowadays are teenage girls. They have no prior history of distress with their gender. And they exhibit extremely high levels of psychological comorbidities like anxiety, depression, and autism. So clearly something is going on here. Now, you asked, why do girls seem more susceptible to this? I think there's a number of reasons. Number one, puberty seems to hit. I mean, Gina, you could tell us if this can confirm this for us. But puberty seems to hit girls harder than it hits boys, and I think for quite obvious reasons. The changes to the body are more dramatic. There's menstruation. There's accumulation of fat. It's a more distressing experience for girls, especially because girls are still judged, sexualized, objectified. And so there's more of an impetus, I think, on teenage girls to want to escape that than for boys. I don't know, Gina, does that sound reasonable to you?
That's a really good point. And we're really careful, I think, on this show and just in our personal lives not to make, not to use words, inappropriately. But, the word that comes to mind when you say that, just that they're judged and all of a sudden you wake up one day and you're sexualized, it feels in a way violent. And I can imagine girls wanting to just snap their fingers and get rid of it at that age. When you're used to being a kid and you're looked at now in a predatory way, it feels violent in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Well, and
no, it's interesting. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say there's also the pornography aspect I've heard you speak to as well.
I saw that in the article.
Yeah. So, I mean, and this ties into what you were saying, Gina. I think it's what you were saying is right. One of the things that I learned from speaking to parents of these teenage girls with rapid onset gender dysphoria, so that's the kind of gender distress that appears during adolescence rather than early on. One of the consistent themes that I heard from these parents, and these parents went out of their way to emphasize this, is just how much pornography their kids were being bombarded with right around the time that they, so to speak, came out as trans. And again, this, I think, confirms the intuition that these girls are looking at images, movies of women being, even if they're not quite objectified, there is, an element of dominating male desire in there, and they don't want any part of it. Now, another very interesting social trends that we're seeing across the board in American society, but this shows up especially among youth, and I mentioned this in the article, is a recession of sex. We are not having as much sex as we used to. It used to be the case until recently that most teenagers who graduated high school would have had at least one sexual encounter by the time they graduated. Now, most have none. And that means, part of this is fueled by social media, rising rates of social anxiety and isolation. And a lot of these teenagers have had no experience, no romantic relationships. They have nothing to base their opinions on human sex differences on. And so again, this kind of bleeds into this notion that teenage girls have of a false notion of what it means to be a sexual creature. And they're terrified of it.
Not
on top of that, of
Bishop.
course.
Sorry, go ahead.
So I'll jump in here for a second, let you catch your breath. I have a boy and a girl twin, and they're in high school. Yes, and for now, right? And I can tell you that the girls are much more interested in the social position and standing. I mean, first off, every time I look at my son, he's wearing the same T-shirt. It's been 4 days in a row. His hair's a mess. He doesn't seem to care. And then his buddies all want to hang out and just basically play grab ass and wrestle and fuck around all day, watch movies and stuff. There is no, Black Lives Matter came and went. All my son did was make fun of it. COVID came and went. All my son did is make fun of it. And so there's no, you don't have, but my daughter, you have to worry about your social standing. Right. And so you have to kind of jump onto these things. And if you're getting knocked down a few pegs socially because you don't have any intersectional points, you're not poor, you're not black, you're not anything, well, it makes sense that a lot would try to up their position by grabbing onto this. And it's invisible, it's unprovable. Rachel Dolezal aside, you can't just announce you're black. We're going to need to see some paperwork.
Well, that's the thing, too. I mean, think of, like you said, up until around maybe 2007, Leor, these were not exactly things that we brought to high school willingly. In our day, you didn't announce you were gay. You didn't announce you were poor. You didn't.
It was a deeply held secret for a lot of people.
And that's the interesting thing about social anxiety and general anxiety being so well received now. I grew up with it. I was fucking alone. So it is a very different world now.
Leor?
Let me say one.
Yes. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say one thing about maybe one additional explanation as to why this is going on with girls more than boys. Think about bullying, which is very common among teenagers in general. Right? When boys bully each other, we beat the shit out of each other. Right? We confront each other one-on-one or maybe in small groups, and we fist fight. When girls bully each other, they do it verbally. They do it through spreading rumors, through psychological torture, through ganging up on social media. Why is that important? Or at least what does that tell us about the differences between boys and girls? Well, I think one thing that it shows is that girls are a lot more attuned to their social status than boys are. And so I think that also goes some way towards explaining why girls are using kind of this LGBT identification in order to boost their own status, their social status. And we also know that, young white liberal females are, young white females are a lot more liberal than boys.
Oh, interesting.
So, if they can also score... So if they could also score intersectional points and, subscribe to all the other Black Lives Matter and all the other movements along the way, that also boosts their social standing.
There's probably another component that I always kind of talked about from doing Loveline all those years back when I wasn't jamming with John Popper. Women are just more flexible and more fluid. There's so many more women who would tell you they had a gay experience in college because they're not lesbian, but they're really attracted to their roommate, and one thing led to another.
Right. And no big deal.
Yeah, there's a kind of a flexibility where guys are much more rigid in their sexuality. It'd be very difficult. Those kinds of I hooked up with a dude in college. Those stories don't exist for straight guys.
Right. It's not socially acceptable.
It isn't, but it's not the social acceptance of it. It's our rigidity sexually. We're just not into it. Like there is no room. We're in kind of a small box sexually. Here's what we like.
I was thinking the same thing. It manifests itself as what our guest is talking about.
Yeah, and so women
expressing itself
by nature, it's just so much more fluid.
Yes.
It's like they're more limber than men. They can, bend down and put their forehead on their knees, and a lot of guys are like, I can't
literally
make it.
limber.
Yeah, so there is like just a sort of fluid kind of like they're willing to slide over here, whereas guys, that is a major commitment if you're going over there. But who was the female author who wrote the book on this subject that I think you've probably referenced before?
Abigail Schreier. And I recommend to all your listeners to buy her book on Amazon and read it because it's superb. And in some ways, it laid the foundations for the kind of research and journalism that nowadays is exposing these cults among teenagers. Let me just say one thing in response to what you were saying, Adam. I think that's a really interesting point. I guess two things. One is that, for girls, that kind of fluidity, that kind of ability to move around in terms of identity and things like that, that's also a huge burden. Because, all teenagers want to have a settled sense of who they are, of identity. And so I think for girls, it's that much more difficult, precisely because it's more acceptable for them to move around and test out categories. But the other thing, and this is something that a colleague of mine, Eric Kaufman, found in a study that I cite in my piece, is that for members of Generation Z, meaning born after 1997, the idea of sexual desire, sexual orientation, what they feel, their attraction, their erotic longings for other human beings, seems to be totally independent of sexual identity, which is a very interesting thought, right? The idea that a young woman can identify as lesbian, but not have any romantic, let alone sexual relationships with another woman, but still declare herself lesbian. And that is what we are seeing increasingly. And I have to say, when I spoke to these parents in California, some of them told me that their daughters have, all of their friends and their friend cohorts identify as either bisexual or lesbian, despite the fact that none of them have had any intimate, romantic relationships with any other human being. For them, it's a political identity, social identity, more so than it is a sexual one.
I imagine you would see more of this in San Francisco and LA than you would in places in Louisiana and Mississippi, which would sort of, I guess, kind of bolster your point. It also makes another point, which is, well, maybe they're just scared to come out in Mississippi. But I would assume in places where you got some points for this, there'd be much more of it going on. And in other places where there was a deduction
keep that to their
for this. But have you checked sort of regionally?
We don't have statistics on that. To the extent that we do, they're usually filtered through LGBT advocacy organizations that are notoriously bad at providing rigorous data on these issues. But one way to think about it is, for people on the left, the kind of the dramatic rise of in LGBT identification among generations. So, Gen Z is, according to a recent Gallup poll, a little over 20% of them identify as LGBT, versus millennials, my generation, is a half of that, 10%. And then it halves every single time you go back another generation. And, one hypothesis entertained mostly on the left is that this is because, we have warming social attitudes. It's more acceptable and they're coming out in greater numbers. And so this was, they were always this way, but now it's just the social penalties have been lifted. Sure, I understand that explanation, but a much more plausible explanation is that in our culture nowadays, and especially in very progressive enclaves of the country, like you were talking about, San Francisco, these kids are responding to social incentives, to social cues. Everything in their life environment is telling them that if they identify this way, they're going to get a huge boost in reputation and status. One of the parents I spoke to even told me that a teacher at her daughter's school has a more lenient homework policy for students who identify as LGBT. I mean, if you're a teenager and you see these kinds of things. Yeah.
Well,
right.
I'll tell you. I'll tell you another residual effect of this. And again, you have to live in San Francisco or the west side of Los Angeles for this. Santa Monica, Pacific Palisades. There are a lot of parents, but women especially, moms versus the dads, who seem to be getting some reflective glory over the kid who's transitioning because they bring it up a lot. And the thing is not so much with the dads, because we're back to the social standing. And again, this ain't going to work in Mississippi. But I have been confused where your kid's sexuality or your kid's identity sexually has always been something that parents never really broached,
Now it gets you some cachet at the tennis club.
Sometimes you talk to women especially, or you hear them on TV, as a mother of a transitioning, you hear them all, they don't pop up on Fox because they're not getting any points on Fox, but they go on MSNBC and as a mother who is, and then Roe v. Wade and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, oh, you're getting some Munchausen by proxy off of the kid transitioning, and thus you're kind of aiding and abetting because now you get a little reflective glory off of it. And why wouldn't you? Why would you try to talk your kid out of something that you're going to get a reflective glory on? Abigail Schreier, I think I'm not pronouncing her last name incorrectly. See, my whole part of this is, have we turned the corner on this, or does someone like that need to have, when she dropped this book, she was not being welcomed at bookstores, and the same apparatus, it's the same group. It's the COVID group. It's this group. It's all the same asswipes that who never stop talking about McCarthyism, trying to get everyone fired and shut everyone down, who just has an opinion and maybe done a little due diligence on the subject. Is it a different? It's like Black Lives Matter took about 10 minutes and now no one's into Black Lives Matter anymore. And it's kind of going that way with lockdowns and COVID and all that stuff you would be destroyed for speaking out against. Now, the bloom is off the rose. But is that true with this subject? Because I feel like this one's turning pretty quick too.
Are you asking, have we turned a corner? Or are you asking?
I'm saying people like you can speak out without, being removed from your livelihood, or could publish a book on it, and it could be at a local bookstore.
Yeah, sure. So look, we don't live in a totalitarian state, at least not yet. But there are those who would nudge us in that direction. And among them, I include, unfortunately, the Biden administration. The Biden administration recently announced an executive order. President Biden signed an executive order that, among many other things, for instance, tries to stop what it calls, quote unquote, conversion therapy, which is nothing more than, psychologists exploring why a teenager might want to go down the road of hormones and surgeries because maybe something else is bothering them in their lives. So the Biden administration, along with Democratic lawmakers in a number of states, have already done this, is trying to stop that from happening. Through Title IX, the Biden administration is now... It's,
by the way, ironically called conversion therapy by them, but it's not conversion therapy. It's you want to convert.
Aversion therapy.
Maybe you should talk to somebody and see if, before you... This is a big step.
But conversion therapy, if I'm not wrong, in its traditional sense is you have a gay son and you'd very much like to make him straight. Is that how we're generally used to hearing it?
Yes, that's the traditional understanding of the concept, and it has been debunked scientifically that can work. But trans activists have tried to harness that same concept, and they've been successful in doing this through medical associations like the American Academy of Pediatrics. They're trying to harness that same concept to discredit any effort to try to make a teenager feel comfortable in her body. And I should point out there's a supreme irony here, which is that if you look at research on childhood gender dysphoria, what you see is that a majority of those who experience this psychological condition, if you just leave them alone and you help them feel comfortable in their bodies, most of them will come out as gay or lesbian. So, this idea of gender affirming, quote unquote, gender affirming medical care, where, their identities are affirmed with hormones, puberty blockers, surgeries, that itself is conversion therapy. You are taking gay and lesbian kids and you are trying to convert them into the opposite sex. But this is an opinion that you're not allowed to say nowadays, even though it has quite a bit of backing in scientific research. But look, yes, I'll repeat what I said earlier. We don't live in a totalitarian state. There is some space for criticizing these ideas. Have we turned a corner? It's hard to know because you have one of our two major political parties, the party that happens to be in power, control the presidency in both houses of Congress, that is fully gung-ho behind gender-affirming care and the most extreme interpretations of trans activism. I should point out, even though the most progressive welfare states in the West, including Sweden, have in the last 2 years have been moving very quickly in the opposite direction. The United States now is an outlier in the area of pediatric gender medicine.
The left is done. the left is done with Sweden. It used to be Sweden. I grew up with the moms like in Sweden, blah, 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 blah. Ever since COVID, they're like, oh, they didn't fucking shut everyone down and lock them in their apartments. Oh, not so much Sweden. And now the transgender thing. You're dead to us, Sweden. All right. Leor Sapir, thank you for coming or zooming in. It's very interesting thoughts. And it's just
for having me.
My pleasure, and I'll give you a plug. The assault on children's psyches, and you can find that on the author page, his author page at the ManhattanInstitute.org. Just more thoughts, more data, more things. I don't know why it makes everyone's like you're a bigot, or like literally if you go,
both can be true.
You go, did the leak come from a lab in Wuhan? And it's like bigot.
Yeah.
It's like that's not a bigoted thought. We're just asking where the fucking thing came from.
Well,
that's
and
all.
Someone like Leor, who we just all met for the first time, very, very easy to listen to and to take him seriously because he doesn't seem like he has a personal axe to grind. He's just showing the data that he's found.
Yeah, very interesting, very articulate. That's why I'm glad we got him on. That's Chris Maxapad. By God, that's producing. All right, we got Made Up Movie coming down the pike. First, I'll tell you about Freeze Pipe. Today's episode is brought to you by Freeze Pipe, the smoothest hitting pipes and bongs around. Tired of the hot smoke burning the throat or coughing attacks after you light up? You can check out the ice-cold Freeze Pipe. Whether you smoke THC or CBD, it's the smoothest and most pleasant way to relax. The secret is a freezable, non-toxic glycerin chamber that's on the pipe. And you pop it in the freezer for an hour, and the smoke passes through it, and it's instantly cooled over 300 degrees. It's quite a piece of technology without moving parts, but it works. Take bigger rips and zero chest and throat burn. It is Freeze Pipe. Am I right, Dawson?
For the coldest and smoothest smoking glass pieces around, check out thefreezepipe.com. They make pipes, bubblers, bongs, and more. And make sure you use code Carolla for 10% off your first order. That's thefreezepipe.com, code Carolla for 10% off your entire order.
All right, we will play a little made-up movie, and we'll do that right after this.
It's time for Nicaraguan Name That Movie with Adam's buddy Oswaldo. See if you can guess which movie this famous line is from.
The next time I have to come here, I am cracking a skull.
If you said The Breakfast Club,
the next time I have to come in here, I'm cracking skulls.
You're correct. Now, back to the show.
All right. We have a made-up movie to get into.
In a world
intro,
where titles
sorry.
are many and plots are few, one man can take your movie names and make them come to life.
What is going on?
Adam Carolla stars in Made Up Movie.
All right, let me just hop on to line 4.
And these are all titles you could see at the multiplex. We're going to make the movie.
Oh, that's right. That's right. A little explanation.
No jokey,
probably.
haha, winky wink.
Is this Dave 52 from Colorado?
Hi, Guy.
Hi, Guy. God, Colorado.
Yeah, title here.
Hold on, Colorado is it's so nice.
Yeah.
I don't know where you are in Colorado, but we were just in all the nicest places.
Oh, yeah. Love it out here, man.
Where are you?
Just south of Denver, so I couldn't see you last weekend, but maybe next time.
Yeah, okay. Glad you have such a casual approach to my live performance.
So you're going to come back in 6 years.
Or not.
Yeah. All right, I'm sorry. Title.
Come on, huge fan, Dave.
Mm-hmm.
Crystal Balls, with the role of Gloria Allred, played by Gavin Newsom.
See, this is not what we're looking
No, see, you can't do
Although it's good
the
to
show.
start out with something like this.
All right, let's talk to Mark 56 from Arizona. Mark.
Hello.
Hello.
How's it going?
It's going good. How are you doing?
Excellent.
Man,
a little hot out here, but excellent still.
Oh, you're in Arizona. Yeah.
In Arizona.
You went full Jason Statham with your landscaping over there. What is the name of your made-up movie?
On the Seventh Day.
On the seventh day.
Now it's on the seventh day he rested?
Yes.
Is that
our good Lord rests after creating the universe, the heavens and the earth and everything on this planet.
But what if he didn't rest?
Oh.
What if he
Go
kept,
on.
What if he kept going?
Ooh.
What if the Lord kept creating beyond?
The Third Testament.
This could be like a sci-fi kind of thing.
Yes, he never took the day off.
I like it.
He's a workaholic.
That's right. And he kept creating a world that had things in it that we know not now.
Okay.
But the Lord did not rest on that seventh day. He kept moving forward.
I love these trailers. Like, there's a world that exists that we can't see, but it's right there.
Right.
Like a parallel universe.
Yeah. And on the seventh day. Now, I
love that.
Should we go Morgan Freeman?
I was thinking sort of a gravitas
you're right.
like Liam Neeson. In sort of a departure from his Taken roles.
Can God be white? And male?
No, not in this man's Hollywood.
Helen Mirren.
Helen Mirren
is God.
Right. And
I just solved it.
Oh, how about God is back and she has work to do?
That's
a
right.
good subtitle.
Yeah.
Right. I'd like to make it Father Nature. In fact, we're going to give you God. But
we're going to flip
we can
everything?
trade. Yeah.
I love this. It's a bizarro world.
So she's created a second world.
Yeah.
But how do we experience it?
Some schlub, a Will Ferrell type, a Jonah Hill type, has to mistakenly, Soul style, the Pixar movie, fall down the manhole and end up in this universe.
Right. That he's clearly not worthy of.
And is there a bizarro Jonah Hill in that universe? Does he encounter himself?
I think there has to be.
Yeah, so there's a bizarro version of Jonah Hill.
And he's much more successful.
The best of every person. Yeah.
He's dating a supermodel.
And does this person, is like Jonah Hill,
it's like us,
have, a girlfriend? Is there love found? Because he needs to find love at some point.
There has to be some tenuous connection between the two, right? The two Jonahs.
Yeah.
Like he has to be like potential, but he just let himself go, or he's not living up to his potential. And he has a good-looking girlfriend or a desirable girlfriend in some way, but she's like hoping he'll turn it around, but it just doesn't happen. And he gets inspiration from visiting the other Jonah Hill, like, this is the life I should be leading.
Right. In real life, he has an Anna Kendrick. But in Bizarro Land, he has a, Charlize Theron.
Reminds me of a movie trailer I did for Jimmy Kimmel. I think Chris can find it somewhere. I think it was called To Hell and Back. And I think the premise...
Weren't you nude?
I was nude in much of it.
We're going to need to see
there
that.
There was a porthole that the monks guarded on Mount, Olympus or something, and that was a porthole to hell. And I was like an Army Special Ranger, and I could go through this hole because I had to find Hitler in hell because there was a man on Earth, and as the elders or the Bible or Nostradamus said, there will be a second Hitler. And I had to actually go find Hitler to figure out what this guy's next move was going to be in order then to come back through the porthole.
Silence of the Lambs, to catch Buffalo Bill, you got to find Hannibal Lecter.
Mark, do you feel satisfied?
Yeah, wow. You guys lost me at hello.
Okay.
I'm enthusiasm.
Speaking of great movies.
That's right.
All right, let's see.
Let's talk to line 3. I got
Line 3. Kevin, 52, Atlanta.
Mijo?
Hey, Adam, Gina, and Bald.
Hey.
The movie is Load Management.
Load management.
Okay, well, my mind goes right to the IVF that Christy and I went through so many times. Those Adam, IVF, those sperm samples, they got to be kept at a certain temperature.
Oh, Jesus
They got to be delivered. You know what I mean? They got to be dry ice. The container they bring, this little vial, I'm holding my hand an inch apart. My fingers. They're carrying a vial the size of a fire hydrant.
Sure.
Not a vial, a container. So much like
go ahead.
Much like Will Ferrell's, Seth Rogen's opening of Pineapple Express, where he's the process server, was the most interesting part of the movie. This guy has to deliver the sperm samples. He delivers the loads.
So he's a kind of lovable fuck up. And
driving the truck.
Right.
The van.
Does he confuse the sperm and ends up getting someone pregnant with someone else's kid, and then somehow strikes up a relationship with that pregnant person.
I'm going to raise the stakes and say he's a bumbling idiot. He spills the sample, but it's got to be delivered.
Oh,
he creates his own. He does his own. Now this is good.
Yeah.
So now, and it turns out this is a good-looking, but a slightly older, and should we say now, is she single? And this is somebody's sperm. Okay.
I think it would complicate things too much if it was a couple.
Right.
I think it's a single lady who she's a career woman, no time for the marriage, just wants the kid.
She spent day and night, toiling over the perfect person from those catalogs that you could pick from, and she found the Adonis scientist of her dreams. That's the sperm she wants.
I don't want to be a one-upper, but what if it's one of these things where she is a successful person?
It's Anna Kendrick. Let's just keep going with this.
Well, like Melissa, God, what's her name?
McCarthy, Joan Hart.
No, the folk singer. Sorry, Melissa Etheridge.
She's a celebrity.
She's a celebrity. But in real life, Melissa Etheridge got Crosby sperm. So she thinks she's getting some special musical sperm.
She paid top dollar.
And that guy. Let's.
Is there like a down on his luck singer, like a former child star or something?
Well, what I was thinking is we do a cameo with like James Taylor.
Yes.
So he's always around, and meanwhile he's rubbing the belly and go a little me coming like this kid's going to be the next Beethoven, and our guy's sitting around going, but he strikes up a relationship, and love is found,
of course.
But at a certain point, he has to come clean.
He has to come clean.
He has to come clean.
In the all is lost moment, she's pissed.
Oh, yeah, but he really is in love.
Of course.
But she's like, I can't believe you did,
Yeah.
Of course. Oh, man.
His backstory, he went to Harvard, some Ivy League, you know what I mean? But he's just kind of slumming it out, directionless.
Yeah. Right.
Wow.
Kevin?
Yeah.
Are you in
love? That was a whole different twist than I thought. I was going a whole nother direction. But I liked all the layers you had. That was awesome.
Oh, okay. All right, yeah. I thought it was great. Good job, Brian.
All right.
I'm
out of here.
Do we have that To Hell and Back?
Yeah.
Is it called?
Yeah.
Is it Start With Me on
Kimmel's
on the chair?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's see. Let's have a little musical interlude. I want to.
Okay.
I can't remember that bit. I do remember.
I mean,
bits of it.
Yeah. Do you want to just go straight to the trailer? Or do you want?
No, I think we got to set it up.
Okay, start from the beginning.
All right, we get it.
Who's the girl?
God, who is that?
I can't find it.
Guest.
She looks familiar. I mean, she's a cute blonde, but I don't know.
Don't know. Reality star.
All right, Gina, you want to pick one up there?
Sure. Let's go line 1.
Line 1. Talk to Eric, 41, Minnesota.
Oh, hi. How's the weather?
Oh, good,
Oh, has the state bird come out yet? That's what they call the mosquito in summer.
Oh, wow.
The state bird.
It's clever.
The state flower is the lady slipper. The state bird is the mosquito. Anyway, what you got for us, Eric?
Final expenses.
Final expenses.
I do like people who get sort of confused when people talk to them in a slightly different way than what they're used to. Final expenses. What do, Eric? You work with your hands?
No.
Oh, okay.
Auctioneer.
Audiobook. Narration. What
line
do
of work?
you move livestock? What do we do?
Actually train new hires.
Oh. Onboarding.
And
exactly.
And do you show them a series of film strips, or do you just sort of stand up and take over?
Film strips all day, every day, Ace Man.
Yeah.
All right.
I buy it.
Makes sense.
All right. So
Final
expenses.
This is giving me some real Office Space vibes.
Mhm.
There, you're there every day. It's a grind. It's very, Joe versus the volcano, 16 tons, and what do you get? People just mindlessly going to this job. But somebody gets a whiff when they walk by HR that this company is going down.
Oh, they're closed in the office.
Yeah, this company, this branch is going down. So he tips off somebody in accounts receivable and says, we could just take all this petty cash and just do one big blowout.
The budget's already set for Q3.
Exactly. And they just go for it in this really kind of fun screwball summer
it's a
comedy.
Brewster's Millions situation.
Exactly.
There was was it Office Party or Christmas Office Party or something?
Jason Bateman?
Wasn't there one of those movies with like Jennifer Aniston, or maybe it was Jason Bateman?
Office Christmas Party.
Office Christmas Party.
Was that the premise?
I don't know. I don't know.
Because Jennifer Aniston was also in Office Space.
Yeah, I may have grafted her into
Also
this movie.
Horrible Bosses.
Maybe it's
Office Christmas Party is when his uptight CEO sister threatens to shut down his branch. The branch manager throws an epic Christmas party
look at you.
in order to land a big client and save the day.
So this is a sequel then.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because they had their fun, but the branch is closing.
Now they have to have. Should it be a kind of generic, like The Office, where we don't really know what they sell or what they
Widgets,
do?
yeah.
Or
completely.
do we want to make it something like gourmet coffee or some idea, some energy
I
water
see.
that went south,
Because
like
that could be a part of the plot.
there's some
Right.
backstory about
I see.
they came up with an energy drink for dogs,
Right.
and one of the dogs died, and everything's fucked. But
That's great.
Yes.
Because that energy water is going to be used at the end during the big blowout party. They pour them all out for the water slide
Yeah.
inside
Yes.
the office.
yes,
Yeah, much like the movie Knocked Up. Remember, they're trying to do what Mr. Skin does, only to
Right.
find out that Mr. Skin exists.
right.
Yeah.
Who do we like in this? You want to get Kevin Hart? Why don't we make Kevin
Yeah.
Hart like
Yeah.
sassy black guy who works in shipping?
It'll be a stretch, but all right.
Oh, you think Kevin Hart can pull off Sassy?
We'll try it.
Well, I'm trying to think where I'm trying
Let's
to think
get Tiffany Haddish in there and get a little romance going.
get Haddish in
Yeah.
there. Yeah, there's blooming romance there.
You know who's always fun? Well, the one actual role I can think of her as the villain. It's really fun, like in Liar Liar, to see Jennifer Tilly as the one that's taking the company down.
Oh yeah, you know what? Yeah, she's the trophy wife of the
Yeah.
of the billionaire who passed away.
That's a great role for her.
Kind of like Major League, she wanted
Right.
to move the team to
Right.
Miami or whatever.
Yes.
And I'm trying to think, could we get the young one who saves the day? Maybe Emma Stone type.
Yeah.
She's new. She has an
Plucky.
idea.
Florence
Plucky,
Pugh,
who
yeah.
could save this
Florence
thing.
Pugh. That's a little more updated.
Because
Yeah.
they're going to have to kind of save the business. It can't just be one big raucous party.
Right. Well, it turns into, I'm glad you said that, because when they have this big crazy party, it turns into afterwards, you know what? We could do this all the time, an events planning company.
It shifts.
It could also be at some point
Like party
that
rental.
it's like an energy water or
Right.
something that's just got a bad name, and there was some contamination.
Right.
It didn't work out. But maybe she's the one who discovers that it's an energy drink for dogs. Like a bottle falls on the ground and breaks,
nice.
and the dogs
Yeah, I love
seems
that.
to lick it up and enjoy it, and then wants to go for a walk or
Yes.
something like that.
Instead of like white lightning, it's wet lightning.
Yeah, Unleashed
Oh,
was
right,
not
sure.
from a sitcom I did a million years ago, but
Right.
we'll work that.
Yeah.
We'll work that in, and then she says, instead of being the 125th energy water for people, why don't we
It's
be the
number one.
First one for dogs.
the first one for dogs?
That's
Yes, the previously lethargic dog, arthritic dog,
Right,
laughs
right.
up. All of a sudden, it's doing laughs. It
Yes.
brings you the leash.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Eric, what do you think?
It's a hit.
Thanks, brother. All right, do we have an outro?
Hell yeah, we do. Come on.
Adam Carolla will return in Made Up Movie Part 2.
All right, let me tell you about Solo Stove. Oh, man, hanging out. So good now. It's warm. People are going to be outside. Maybe 4th of July's around the corner. It is so nice to have a roaring fire pit out there. A smokeless fire pit from Solo Stove makes the outdoor moments more memorable. This thing is built well. Stainless steel. Beautiful construction, and it's designed to work. It's not just like pit with the logs in it. No, it works well. I use it all the time. It's stainless steel. It regulates airflow to burn more efficiently. It's just a little smoke and ton of fire, almost no smoke. That's the efficiency of it. Easy to light with just a few bits of starter. And there's a lifetime warranty and a 30-day free return policy. So check it out. You'll love it. It's Solo Stove. Right, Dawson?
Right now, you can get big discounts on all fire pits during Solo Stove's 4th of July sale and use promo code Adam at solostove.com for an extra 10% off. That's solostove.com. Promo code Adam for $10 off on top of their incredible 4th of July sales discounts. But hurry, the 4th of July sale ends July 10th.
All right, quick break. Come back with the news right after this.
Give me the news with Grad. News with Gina Grad. Breaking, viral, weird crime, protest, politics. Give me news with Gina Grad. Stuff they saw on TMZ. Joe Biden, Kamala. Meet news with Gina Grad.
The news with Gina Grad.
Well, we have some news that's breaking as of today. As we record this, we did Ghislaine Maxwell yesterday. So today, why don't we do R. Kelly?
Oh, Ghislaine, I spoke to
Mark
about. I didn't get to him on the IVS question, but I got him with the Ghislaine question. So I said, if you got information that's going to help you, and we do have a weird system, which is
the barter system.
You can do whatever you want in life as long as you know someone who's more famous and has done more shit than you've done.
You can trade that in.
You don't have to worry about going to prison. So
get out of jail free.
That's nice. You murder as many people as you want, but as long as you're going to turn in the crime boss or the Don, then you can move to Arizona and get a new name. So it's an interesting process.
It is.
Doesn't feel like justice is whoever thought of justice initially conceived of it, but
that's why there's so many plea deals, because it's just now you can say you have a win on the books.
So Maxwell, I said to Mark, why no bringing up the little black book or getting into that? He said, well, first off, you don't play it until you need it, and he said her first case was seemed semi-winnable, so she didn't need to play it. You can play it after it doesn't work out. Also, her chances for a retrial are very strong.
Why?
And to win in a retrial. There's something I forgot about when I was talking about this with him, I don't know, a year ago. One of the jurors came out the video with him and his cat or something. Mark calls him Catman or something. I don't know. Gary will remember it. But this juror came out, seemed like a very affected person, had his cat, and said, listen, I was victimized, sexually when I was younger, and I kind of convinced other jurors to listen to me. Which then That's sort of mistrial stuff there, but it wasn't. But it's
glad to see good things happening to good people.
Right, but there's definitely a very winnable next trial that you can say we want another trial because of this guy, and then you can play that card if the second one doesn't. I guess his description of it is you want to hang on to that
as long
until
as
you
possible.
really need it. What you have that vid, Gary, or what was that vid? What's he call that guy? The cat guy?
Mark likes to refer to him as Catman as of recently. I can't remember if there was an original nickname, but I can go find you the pictures. We didn't have a video.
Oh, it was a picture of him, and then he was.
It's a giant cat.
It's a giant cat, and he was explaining. He was converting jurors because he was.
Why would he do that? And who picked him for this jury?
They may have taken the cat, and he just came along with the cat. I don't know, but there's a picture of him with a giant cat. So anyway, that's what his explanation was.
Satisfying answer. Thank you for asking him. While Gary looks for that, let's talk about R. Kelly. As you know, R&B singer-songwriter, he has been sentenced to 30 years in federal prison following decades of sexual abuse allegations. Assistant U.S. Attorney Elizabeth Getty said Kelly, who's 55 now, masterminded a scheme to target, groom, and exploit girls, boys, and women. For decades, allegations swirled around the singer, who was previously acquitted in 2008 on the child porn charges. In an indictment following his 2019 arrest, prosecutors allege that Kelly and his team, that's managers and bodyguards and assistants, traveled throughout the United States and abroad to perform at concerts and recruit women and girls to engage in illegal sexual activity with Kelly. That's as far back as 1999. Here's the best part. According to the indictment, Kelly allegedly required his victims to follow numerous rules in which they weren't permitted to leave their rooms without permission. They weren't allowed to leave their rooms to eat or go to the bathroom. They weren't allowed to look at other men, and they had to call him Kelly Daddy.
You can't leave you go to the bathroom. You got to save them for him.
I know that I like I like a lot of control over abroad,
Right.
like the next guy does. But you'll never go to the bathroom.
I'm fine
Who
with
does that benefit?
It doesn't benefit us.
I'm a benevolent ruler when it comes to that.
Hey, do you want to? Would you like to have intercourse with essentially a bursting pinata?
But not candy.
Yeah, that ain't a Tootsie Roll.
That's right.
Come on.
So I don't know. I wonder what Mark knows about him.
Remember the joy of when they came out with the giant Tootsie
Oh,
Roll?
my
I was like,
God.
oh my God, this will last me the whole movie. Not that we could afford to buy it at the theater, but you could
if you
smuggle
were
that in.
able to.
Also, Tootsie Rolls suck.
Yeah, they're pretty
Yes.
lame candy.
They're pretty. They're filed under the weird novelty, chalky, gristly, kind of
Like piece of
shiny, kind of
chocolate.
weird. Like just
Makes you salivate.
Give me some nuts. Give me some nougat. Give me some peanut butter. Some
Yeah.
caramel. We're
done.
covered.
Also, I know one person who made Tootsie Rolls palatable by roasting them in the fire so they get crackly. And I was
really?
like, well, that's pretty good. But otherwise, yeah, they're terrible.
Juror Scott David. We have the
Catman.
picture of him.
Let's see
and his,
Catman. Whoa, that's is
a
a
lynx?
Persian. Yeah,
That's a 30-pound
Russian-
cat.
That's a big cat.
Yeah.
I like that cat. So
Yeah.
this guy, he somehow got on the jury, even though I'm sure they asked them directly, had you ever been?
I guess, and then somehow.
Wow.
I don't know if he
Okay.
tweeted about it. I don't know if he did an interview, but he kind of tainted the trial. So
Cat, man.
anyway.
That's a big cat.
Yeah, look, I've said a million times, if you're a celeb, we always talk about, it'll ruin you in this town, putting weight on or getting into drugs or getting into alcoholism
Giant
or
cats.
whatever. Giant cats. Just a sexual thing that is different than what we
What we're down with.
deem acceptable, and a kind of an unyielding 24/7, it's just, I need this thing, that you want to talk about ruining a career.
Yeah.
First off, talk about the
He has
distraction.
all the incentive in the world to not pursue that interest.
I have two words for
Right.
you. Army Hammer.
Yeah.
Where is he now?
First
Possibly
off,
in a-
it's hard to even know what it is with some of these people.
Yeah.
But, it's like Bryan Cranston, married to the same woman for 31 years and free to get on with his career. You know what I mean?
He has a new movie with Annette Bening.
Yeah, maybe, okay, maybe he'd like to bang a 19-year-old cocktail waitress.
Among Us.
I get it,
Sure.
but
He weighs the cost-benefit analysis.
slow and steady wins the race,
Right.
and they've been together for Cranston's wife, 35 years, but thus you get the body of work.
Yeah.
Right.
And you can go to Toronto for 3 weeks and not go insane or have to go out and, hit the streets at
Right.
night and get
It can be
call
done.
girls and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
you have that urge, especially when it's bizarre,
Yeah.
you kind of done.
Yeah.
It'll catch up with you fast.
Yeah.
The more you know.
Mm-hmm.
Let's check in on this surprise January 6th hearing that convened with 24 hours notice because they had things to say. The House Select Committee investigating the events around January 6th held its sixth public hearing this week, focusing on testimony from former White House aide Cassidy Hutchinson, who, by the way, is like 26 years old.
Very young.
Yeah.
I know.
The panel had been abruptly scheduled and given about 24 hours notice. Hutchinson is the first former staff member from the Trump White House to publicly testify as part of the probe and worked as a special assistant to former Chief of Staff Mark Meadows. So some of the key exchanges, Hutchinson claimed the president was aware of a number of attendees in the crowd who were armed and wearing body armor and brought in all kinds of stuff, didn't want those metal detectors there. And I believe she said that he said, which I think tracks, like, get the metal the mags, get the metal detectors out of there. The place doesn't look full enough, which I think we can probably imagine him saying. But there's a couple things that are refuted.
I was listening to a former presidential guard. Screw the name.
The Secret Service?
Secret Service. I don't know why. The Secret Service person, and he said this happens quite a bit where the magnetometer, they can handle about like 400 people an hour or something passing through it.
Right.
You're doing some event at the mega center and the place is half full, and many politicians, because this guy was with, I think he was with Clinton. No, he was with Obama, and then he was with Bush. He said the aides will say, can we just push them through? Can we just get rid of the magnetometer and fill this place up?
Right.
It's a fairly common thing for the person that's like, if I was doing a show and the place was half full, I'd be like, just let them in because I want to play to a full house.
Well, it's interesting too, the inflection, the emphasis you put on which syllable, because I was listening to this thing about it on, after I watched it on some news podcast, and she said that he said, get rid of those, whatever. And they said, well, sir, they have weapons. And he said, well, let them through. They're not here to hurt me. But when it was replayed, when they were talking about it, they said, and she said, exactly, they're not here to hurt me. Which is a very different statement, obviously. Separately, she also relayed an incident in which the former president believed he would be transported to the Capitol, and apparently he really wanted to get down there, but was ultimately prevented by the Secret Service. She says that she was told that Trump grabbed the steering wheel and then reached for the guy's throat, essentially. But there are a few people refuting that, and she said that's just what I was told.
Well, I was talking to Mark about this, and he doesn't like these kind of things because he wants to cross-examine everybody.
Right.
He doesn't like a world where you get just to say stuff and then you go home. He's like, were you in that limo? It would be my first question is a cross-examination.
Yeah, she said she wasn't.
And then we'll start picking it apart. So I've heard a few things. No doubt I'm sure Trump wanted to go there. The reaching through and grabbing the steering wheel sounds pretty dubious, but the two Secret Service guys who were on that detail said, we will speak under oath to this, that he did not do that. Now, if you're actually running a committee that's trying to get to the bottom of whatever, then you would happily talk to those two. I do not think we're going to hear from those
That would be
guys.
so dumb, because the whole point of this was, oh my God, we have a fly on the wall and we can actually find out what people were doing, what they were saying, what they were thinking. So if you wouldn't want to get the head of the Secret Service, I don't really know what you're doing.
Well, there's people they don't want to hear from. They don't want to hear from Nancy Pelosi, who is sort of ultimately has the decision-making as far as security, or Mayor Bowser, who's the mayor of D.C. They're not asking them questions. They're not going to talk to the Secret Service guys who say this didn't happen. So they're sort of picking at things with a narrative, which then they're losing some of their credibility, because if the mission statement is let's get to the bottom of this, then let's get to the bottom of it. Yeah. But the mission statement is we don't want Trump running in 2024.
Well, someone who I don't know why he would do it, but if the person now I want to talk to more than anyone is the lead legal counsel, because they were talking a lot about him, like him saying, you got to stop this. This is effing crazy. This is going to be lawsuits from here to the next 100 years. Mm-hmm. So he's who I'd want to talk to. But I can't believe I didn't know this. Tell me if you knew this. I at least finally got to figure out, or got to hear, what Trump's call sign is.
Oh.
It's like Golden Eagle. Or
Yeah.
Do you know what his is?
No.
It's perfect. Mogul.
Oh.
Mogul's on the move.
There you go.
Yeah.
He's mogul. So, well, I don't know. I mean, I think they're coming back after 4th of July. And they're supposed to have another sort of bombshell question mark?
Yeah, the other thing, we're living in this weird world where it's like magnetometer, guns. We're told guns and guns. How many shots were fired? And the answer is 0. Actually, one shot was fired.
The other
it was
way.
a Capitol policeman shooting a chick in the face.
Right.
So one shot. So like you can make all you want out of everything, and it's something, but if nobody fired a shot at either the rally, the march, or inside the Capitol, it's a soft ending to a hard beginning.
Right.
You know.
it doesn't seem like you've been affected by this, but I know tons of people who have lately. And I was like, what the hell's going on? And now I have an answer. Have you been flying Delta? You got back here, so I'm assuming not. Because, boy, have they been canceling flights right and left.
We've flown, I don't know, Chris, what have we flown? We've flown Southwest.
We flew Southwest.
Oh, right,
and
okay.
maybe Delta the last. I don't know if we flew it the last time or whatever.
Nobody's getting anywhere these days with Delta, and hundreds of off-duty Delta Airlines pilots plan to picket this week, demanding a pay increase and that the carrier change their schedules to reduce these flight disruptions. The Airline Pilots Association said in a statement of nearly 14,000 members that they're working longer hours. Flights are always being canceled. Jason Ambrosi, he's a union official and Delta pilot. He said the perfect storm is occurring. Demand is back. Pilots are flying record amounts of overtime, but are still seeing our customers being stranded and their holiday plans ruined.
Commercial airline pilot used to be the go-to cool job.
Of course,
if you
sexy.
knew somebody who was a commercial airline pilot, if it's a sitcom or a movie, he was good looking, got the chicks.
Oh, yeah.
No one
Flanked
knew.
by
the stewardesses. We didn't know how much he made, but we assumed he was very well compensated.
Oh, very well to do.
And you could have, if you're doing a movie, that guy could drive a Rolls Royce to his home in Beverly Hills. Like, he's a pilot.
Yeah,
you
we'd
know?
buy it.
Sense.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did Southwest ruin that for everybody? Like the cachet?
The economy flying.
Yeah.
Regional airlines.
And then Frontier and Spirit buried it.
Yeah, just kind of.
Do you know the age that you, no matter what, have to retire as a pilot?
It's early, right? Like
65?
65. So this is what's happening with the labor shortage, because I was very curious. So during the pandemic, we know thousands of pilots were laid off, given early retirement packages, furloughed, and now they don't want to come back or they aged out. Then came there was this looming pilot shortage.
Get back to work,
Please.
you pussies. Come on.
And by 2029, no baby boomers will be able to fly because they'll all be older than 65. So they're trying to change that to 67. They're cutting a few edges. They're trying to, you don't have to have quite as many hours in the sky.
Look, I would be perfectly happy with 70s the cutoff as someone, because people are healthier, they live longer, blah, blah, blah. Also, I think it's, Chris, you can look. I don't know if it's American, maybe it's Delta, but American also, I think it was American that did this thing. It's like by 2030, half the pilots are going to be people of color or women. Like they made some big
proclamation.
They made one of those, Los Angeles or California is going to be half electric cars by 4 years from now. Like, okay, good fucking luck with that.
It was United.
Oh,
They'll
it's
train
United.
5,000 pilots, and by 2030, half will be women or minorities.
Okay.
Or just the most skilled people who really want to do it the
People can
most.
land a plane.
Yeah.
Do you want Kamala Harris, the pilot version of Kamala Harris up in that cockpit? Or can we just get the folks that flew in the Navy, men or women, black or white, and just get the good ones?
It'd be nice.
They're going to have to drop this if this shit's coming because it's just too ambitious.
Well,
but anyway.
And maybe that's their way of spinning it. Like, we don't have enough pilots. Let's appeal to people who generally aren't pilots and look like heroes in the process.
It's always an interesting thing where we go, we need more this of that. This group needs to be more involved with that. Certain cultures, men, women, whatever, they gravitate towards certain jobs, and there's just more of them who want to do this kind of jobs. Like when, I don't know, it was some study out of Sweden again, I think, who just did a thing where it's like, we're not going to do any more of this. We're going to step back and see who goes this way. And more women go into school teaching and nursing and more men go into engineering. And it's just like how we roll.
Self-selecting samples.
Yeah, but we don't like Sweden anymore.
Oh, that's right.
That's right.
Screw Sweden.
Yeah.
We have an update on the grandmother of the Uvalde shooter, and I think it's worth noting.
The
Remember
one who was shot?
Yes, in the face. She's alive.
Oh, shit.
And she's been discharged from the hospital after more than a month of treatment. The shooter is accused of shooting his grandmother, who was 66, in the face at her home, then driving, to rob elementary school and,
Do we know he shot her?
You know what?
We have a witness.
Perhaps. Actually, we do, and
We
I'm
do?
glad you asked.
Because I'm saying if Sonny ever goes on a spree, I'm going to go find a pistol to shoot myself in the thigh
Yeah.
and then just lay down.
That's smart.
In the corner of my bedroom and go, God, I was his first victim. I can't control the boy.
It depends on your neighbors, because a neighbor who lived across the street from where the shooter shot his grandmother claimed that the woman came running out of her home covered in blood saying, look what he did to me. And the neighbor says, even though she didn't say who he was, at that point, they were
known
pretty
in the
sure.
neighborhood. He's known to the neighbors.
Right, who he is.
Oh, man.
So she is out of the hospital. And just as a side note, and this is unfortunately to say typical, Robb Elementary School is being demolished. The mayor said at a city council meeting, you can't ask a child to go back or a teacher to go back in that school. Other sites like Sandy Hook.
Also, like single story, cinder block, 1950s
Time for an
construction.
upgrade. Right.
That's,
Yeah.
Now, oh God, what was the first big one?
Sandy Hook?
Columbine.
Columbine. That place was a palace.
Yeah, it was
They
a
didn't-
nice school.
They
Yeah.
didn't demolish that one, did they?
I don't know. That's in Colorado. Why don't you go by and find
That's
out?
in Littleton.
Chris wanted
I think
to
it was
go.
just the library. Remember, I want. yeah.
Chris
It almost slipped
that was
by
my
you.
one
He
request.
he was kind of like touching himself a little bit. He was kind of rubbing his groin. He was, and he was
Jesus.
going like, come on. He went full Trump. He grabbed the wheel from Mike. He was like,
Jesus.
turn
Lunch.
off here.
Chris, what's wrong with you?
I really want to see it.
It's just kind of weird wearing black fingernail polish and
honestly-
grabbing the wheel.
As
That's
his
alarming.
boss, you might want to get him some help or you'll be
Yeah,
liable
this
if
is
he
gonna
does
come down
something
to you,
crazy.
buddy.
Yeah, I said, let's just go to Red Rocks. And he's like, okay.
Those rocks will be red, all
I don't know,
right.
you guys,
Oh,
are you not
pride.
horny? And that, I brushed it off at the time, but
Yeah.
In
Looking
retrospect,
back,
yeah.
And we passed by John Bonet's house.
Jesus Christ.
What was this, some sort of serial killer tour?
That was Mike August's macabre tour because he's from.
He spent a lot of time there.
That was
yeah.
his ghoulish tour.
I thought he was in Louisiana.
He spent a lot of
He
time in
claimed-
And New York.
Colorado.
Okay.
A lot of time in Colorado, and he's telling us about the Flatiron Mountain Range, which he never stops talking about, but he's proud of it. And then he talks about this, and then at some point we're rolling into we're in Boulder. I think he was pointing to John Bonet's.
Oh, look who's here!
Hey. John, I mean,
Jean Benet
Mike,
August.
John Bonet's house is Boulder.
John Bonet's house, or former house, is Boulder, yes.
Okay.
Why?
We just
Apparently you took them on a tour.
Yes, of Jean Bonet's house. We did the whole tour.
Now, what did you tell them? Because, quote unquote, the jury's still out on her murder,
Right,
even though we
right.
kind of know the family wasn't a fan.
Do we know who is the...
Well, they're talking about between the parents and the brother.
I know, like he was what, 8?
Yeah, but that family was not functional.
Well, the weird thing is, like, who's dead, the mother or the father?
I don't know. I got to look.
I think the mother is dead.
I don't keep up like you.
died.
So
yeah.
the dad and the son are the only keepers of the Jean Bonnet secret.
Oh, boy.
Jesus. What's it going to take?
Fucking
Get
ghoulish.
to talk.
Seriously.
Somebody killed that kid.
It's weird that we
No murder,
never
crime podcast
figured
without
it
it.
out.
Yeah.
Well, the people who know,
Yeah.
on,
I
it's
think
the family.
I think we all know, but
who's got a vendetta against a 6-year-old beauty pageant queen?
that's right.
You should have.
Did she screw somebody in a card game?
We gotta have a spin
Drug deal gone wrong?
August hosts a true crime podcast. Light on detail, but thick
I'd be
on
the worst.
passion.
I'd be the worst.
this
It's
would
like,
be a
no, the
point of
family
listening.
did it. The family always does
It would be called Murder in August.
Exactly.
Did they? What about the story of the girl that was abducted by like the handyman and lived out in the woods?
That's Elizabeth Smart, right?
Was that Colorado
That
too?
that was Utah.
Why didn't we drive out there?
That
was where
next on the
Elizabeth
tour.
Smart
Then we
was.
could go up to where was the Unabomber? We can hit him on the way back.
Alaska?
His shack.
Kaczynski.
Yeah.
And don't
Kaczynski.
forget, was it Ariel Castillo who had all those girls in the basement in Ohio? You could do a whole
Oh
tour.
yeah, come on,
Yeah.
Mike.
God, I got to start booking us around these fantastic murder stories. They're so
Jesus.
uplifting and fun. Well, I came in halfway. What's the problem with Boulder now?
No, he loves it. He loves Colorado.
He should.
I love it.
There's nothing
what,
not to love.
What years were you there from?
Oh God. Let's see. From the age of 6 to like 13.
Oh.
Yeah, 7.
Formative years.
7 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, the formative years.
Because your dad was coaching.
He's coaching at the University of Colorado, so we got to live in Boulder when it was still reasonably fun to live in Boulder.
Yeah.
You know, I can even tell you this, because Boulder was ruined by the hippies. They came in the 60s. They never left. They overregulated the place. They pushed all the businesses out.
When were you
We
there?
went to lunch last Friday. We were in Boulder, right? We parked the car downtown Boulder. We go over to the mall or the open street place, have lunch. We put 2 hours on the meter. And I said to Adam, you know what? I got to get back because I know we're going to get a ticket. And he's like, don't worry about it. We got time. Of course, we come back. 15 minutes late. There's a ticket on the car, right? I pulled the ticket off, whatever. So I go to pay it this week, and there's 2 tickets. I'm like, 2? Is it double? Did they make a mistake? Oh, no. I got the overtime ticket, and I got another ticket for the same amount for angled parking.
What? Like
not parking.
Turning your steering wheel?
I don't know.
Oh,
I
bet
don't
it's because
care.
I bet it's because he backed in.
Doesn't matter. That's what happens when a city goes bad.
Yes.
They're going to double down on the ticket rate because they won't allow a business to come in the city and actually do
Right.
business. The houses are 1 million years old.
Yes.
I mean, this is what happens.
They got to rape the
They ruin a
citizens.
place.
Yeah. All right, Mike. We'll,
Can I rant about Boulder some more?
No.
Please.
Let's bring it home.
Okay.
Gina Grad.
I'm Gina Grad, and that's the news.
Gina Grad.
That was the news with Gina Grad.
All right, Indianapolis. See what child died there, Gina, and maybe
Jesus
Mike.
Christ.
We can swing by. Oh, wait a minute! I got the wrong.
That's the wrong.
I got the wrong one up
yeah.
there. I knew that was wrong. We're going to Missouri, right?
Springfield, yeah.
Springfield. That's right. Springfield, Missouri. Blue Room Comedy Club. That'll be July 15th, 16th. You can go to amcarolla.com. We're doing Mic Drop Comedy October 28th, 29th, by the way, in San Diego. And you can pre-order my book, Everything Reminds Me of Something, out July 19th. Just go to amcarolla.com for all that. And until next time, Sam Carolla for Leor Sapir, I should say, and Gina Grad and Bald Brian saying mahalo.